Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this episode of AI in the Enterprise. And today I have asked a special guest, Darren Saumur. Darren's in Toronto today, and he's joining us to talk about a very important topic, which is a topic of modernization using digital transformation. It's a topic that I know we've touched upon many times, and it comes up in many conversations because when we meet and work with startups and we meet with new technology companies that are starting from scratch, it's really it's a really innovative but a simpler job to get new technologies and an innovation on the ground. What's a little bit more challenging is actually taking an existing operation, a book of business, a large installed base of clients, and actually modernizing that operations with digital technologies. And I wanted to bring in Darren, first of all, because of his expansive background in this area, but more importantly, the work he's been driving for the company in helping us think through that. So with that, Darren, first off, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Sanjay.
And thanks for joining us. And Darren, just as a quick introduction for our audience, perhaps you could spend a minute on, tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, great. Yeah, so thanks, Sanjay. And it's exciting to be on this show with you. So I started my career at Ernst & Young, and there, shockingly, became a chartered accountant, or a CPA, which I got to say I've forgotten everything I learned. And then moved my way up into consulting, into business process outsourcing, became a partner there for 15 years, then moved on to SAP, where I ran large-scale implementation teams for them globally. So started in Canada, then North America, then globally. And then moved to a company called Infor, which you may not have heard of, but it's the third largest enterprise software company. We helped them move their on-premise customers into the cloud, and I ran the consulting as well as the SaaS business for them. And then really been at Genpact now almost 2 years, coming up on 2 years. Shockingly, it went by so fast.
Fantastic. And, we've got a global operation, 95,000 employees spread around the world in a variety of businesses, and you're a chief operating officer. So thank you for that, and welcome again on this discussion. That was kind of really nice. Unfortunately, I know all of that because I know you well, and you and I work very closely together. So just for me and for our audience, tell us one thing you think I don't know yet, so we get to know the real Darren.
All right. Well, so it's probably not well known that there's a super group called U2, and they have a guitar player named The Edge. That's me. I am The Edge. I wish I was The Edge. No, I'm a guitar player. So I don't know if you can see there's a couple of guitars. There we go. A couple of guitars behind me. But I have 55 guitars. I don't play them as much as I would like to, but and I used to be an amazing guitar player, but work kind of knocks it out of you. So I wish I was a rock star, Sanjay.
It never goes away. It'll always come back. So when we want to pick it up, but that's great. I actually didn't know about that. That's why I've been seeing that those guitars in the back, but I've always wondered, never asked. So anyway, thanks for joining. Listen, let's just change gears and get right into it. Modernizing operation that is large and big and global in scale. What does it mean? It means 100 things to 100 people. For you, what does modernization really mean?
Yeah. So for us, look, there's 4 things we put into it. We say modernization. So number 1 is how do you drive more digital technologies into operations? So this is an operation with, as Sanjay said, 95,000 people globally. So how do we automate more of the things that we do? And there's 2, obviously, automate how we actually run our business, also automate our clients' business. So there's 2 things we, obviously working with your team, Sanjay, closely. So that's one of the big ones. The second one around modernization is what we call the mojo. As we've grown, there's a mojo that makes Genpact successful that we've got in operations. And so as we scale, we got to continue to maintain that mojo. And that's things like even good old fashioned things like Lean Six Sigma, making sure we continue to do that and make sure our new employees get trained on Lean Six Sigma. So that's number 2, maintain the mojo. Number 3 is the people agenda. You can't modernize a business without thinking about the impact of people with 95,000 people. So for us, we have an amazing program at Genpact called Genome that we're using to help bring our people with us into this new digital world. They're really, really strong in the domain. And so we're trying to make them strong with digital technologies as well. And that's one of many things, but probably the biggest thing. And I would also say leadership needed in a new digital world is different with leadership in the old. Like we used to be more command and control. You could say in the old BPO world and the new BPO world, it's a team of teams approach, right? So to do that, it takes different leadership skills. So that's kind of our people agenda. And then the last thing is we are, we have to maintain an efficient operation where we deliver big, productivity commitments to our clients, which means we have to deliver a lot of productivity inside of our operation. So, and those are really the four biggest: digital operations, the mojo, the people agenda, and efficiency. So it's really
that's what's really striking about that is, most people jump into, and most approaches jump into modernization just from the point of view, what innovative digital technologies can we put into play? And sure, that's important and that's critical in getting it right. But I think what you're doing is, and what you're suggesting is that you've got to expand the playing field to actually cover people, the culture, the talent components, and really eye towards operating efficiency. And then when you bring those things together with innovative technologies, that's when you truly realize true modernization. Is that kind of...
No, that's right. And that's bang on, Sanjay. And the other thing I'd say is that if you look at any one of those four pillars I talked about, they're actually completely interrelated. So when we implement a digital technology, we don't implement it unless first off, is it going to improve our mojo? Or is it going to make us more efficient and more financially better off, as well as our clients? And then the third, what impact it's going to have on people? So anything we implement, we're always thinking of all four pillars, but the technology and the automation is driving a lot of it, if that makes sense.
It's fantastic. Well, listen, I mean, no time like now to actually take these concepts, and I think the design principles that you've really laid out, and bring that to life for our viewers with an example of something. And I know a bunch of the work we've done together, but if you can pick one example and just bring that to life so we can start sensing and feeling this a little bit.
Yeah, look, I'll pick one I'll pick on operations, just the core of our business, and I'll say more on the mojo. As we've gotten bigger and as we've grown into more geographies, and obviously your team is helping us build all these, Sanjay, we really wanted to change the culture. We wanted to move a culture where where people are much more proactive. And they are proactive, but sometimes there's not a lot of transparency as you move up the ranks. And especially for me, being the COO, knowing what's going on inside of operations is, unless I'm looking at my email, it's pretty hard to figure that out. So we wanted to change that big time. And we thought, why not use technology to drive our culture change, which is, not something I think a lot of people would think about. So what we did was we said, listen, we're going to give a voice to 95,000 people. So we created a tool called the Alert Tool. And it's as easy as walking over and, if you smell smoke, you pull a fire alarm. So we wanted to make it, there's no more than 5 simple data points you put in. So in other words, if you're having problems on your account, you don't think you can solve them. It doesn't mean you can't solve them, but it's just to give everyone else awareness so the company will come rally to you. And by the way, you're much more proactive. It's much more easier to deal with a problem before it becomes a problem than after it's become a problem. So the Alert Tool is one way to do that. We also introduced something called, so that's kind of, you could say, for the masses. Then for our first line managers, we introduced something called a FLM cockpit. And so every day, the first line managers sit down with their teams and they talk about where are they seeing the accounts? Where are the issues? Are we seeing backlog increases? What's happening with our customers? So their SLA challenges, or is the customer trying to do something? They've asked us to help them. It's their year end, and now it's time we got to collect more money for them or whatever. So capturing all that data now across thousands of people every single day, it's amazing. We started putting machine learning on top of that, and it started to give us insights into business processes we didn't actually have inside of our operation, and things we may have taken for granted that were happening that may not be happening. So that was amazing insights. And then the last is, if you've ever taken an Uber and you've rate the driver from 1 to 5 stars, we wanted to create something that simple that the sales team and our very top of the house delivery people could talk about their account every single day. So they could go in and rate their account 1 to 5 stars, and voice of delivery, voice of the customer, how are we doing? And it gave us a very quick, it's based purely on human judgment, and they rate the accounts very quickly. Now, if they just like in an Uber driver, if you rate the account less than 4 stars or less, there's a little drop down menu that might say, okay, what is it? Is it backlog issues? Is it resourcing issues? What are the key issues? So very quickly now, anyone in the company, any senior people in the company can see very quickly from the top of the house to the first line managers, really to anyone on the floor, what's happening. It's all driving more proactive, issue resolution. So
I think it's fascinating. And, look, we've been joined at the hip to try and get this done. I'll tell you, there are 3 things that I saw in the work that was done that I think relates to some of the discussions we've had on this forum. I think the first one is kind of this notion of a digital workplace and this idea of transparency and making data available to people so we can react quickly and react fast. And And I think that's an important concept. I also think the concept of experience economy is an important concept here, because this isn't like, this is not work that we're bringing in new people to do. This is part of everyone's job. And it's one more thing that needs to happen. And unless the experience is compelling and it's easy and it's kind of centered around the individual that's doing it, we all know this, it never flies. And so getting the experience part of this right was the second thing. And we talked about that separately in this forum. And I think the third thing that was really interesting, and it's playing out, we're building out there, we're not 100% there, but is this notion of building a foundation of data upon which you can run AI and ML and allow that to drive insights into the future. And that takes time and effort, but it doesn't start till you actually get that foundation in place. And I think this project that we just spoke of actually is a perfect way, and it demonstrates what we've done in being able to get a foundation of data. And I thought that was pertinent because we talked about all three of those ideas: building a foundation of data.
And Sanjay, you must, I mean, obviously you see this in your day job all the time. Data, it's amazing. The data that you may not even think has any relevance to your business, and still you start looking at it and start looking at it in context of other data. It's amazing how much more powerful it becomes. Again, stuff I never thought would give us any insights. It's amazing to see. I'm sure you see this all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think exactly right. Well, listen, this is just turning out to be a fascinating conversation. We are actually at our 11-minute mark. I do want to ask you one other question, and then I'm going to let you go. And we'll obviously have follow-ups on this. People typically respond on LinkedIn, and there'll probably be a few more questions. Darren, if you had to look back at this entire experience that we had with us and with this project as an example, what's the one learning? What's the one thing you'd sort of pass on to everyone else saying, guys, if you're going to go down this path, make sure you do this? What is this?
Yeah, so here's what I would, and this would be for me in particular, because coming to Genpact just 2 years ago, 95,000 people. I guess what I learned is you can't use your title. Your title's irrelevant. The fact I'm a chief operating officer, irrelevant. You can't get 95,000 people to change unless they want to change, right? So the question is, how do you make this? If you want to drive change, how do you make it so you make my job easier, make my job more exciting, and make me believe this is the right thing to do? So I think for me, that's been the biggest learning. And what I figured out, I learned through working with our team and working with your team, Sanjay, is that it's amazing that people in the business you may think don't care about digital, but they're not. I mean, my team aren't traditionally digital people, but it's amazing how thirsty everyone is for digital. I mean, we have a young team globally. They know more about digital than many people. We never knew that, right? So when we let the genie out of the bottle, when we brought them Genome and we brought them some of these tools, and by the way, we said, here's some ideas in these tools, they came back with better ideas than anyone would have come up with, right? So getting people to change is something that I don't think it can be forced from the top down. You got to build it from the grassroots. And we built this team called the Transformation Ambassadors, and they come from all walks of life. We don't care what your title is. Our boss, our CEO is on the Transformation Ambassador. I'm on it, but then there's people literally at the farthest levels in our company. When you're on that team, what we said is your title means nothing. You can challenge anything in the company, and that's driven a lot of this change I'm talking about. So for me, that's probably the number one thing, Sanjay, is get change, get the people to drive it, and all I can do is have big ears and listen if I'm going to do my job right, and then partner with the right people, such as yourself, to bring the capabilities. So,
well, what an amazing journey that we've been on. And I don't think we'd be here without, I think, you and the rest of the team sort of pulling in. I think your concepts of humility and the workplace being decentralized in the decision-making, favoring self-aggregated teams that come together, that can attack a problem, and being agile and iterative are concepts that we've talked about in a variety of different forums. And I can see that sort of being reinforced in what you're saying. I think it's been a great discussion, Darren. Thanks for taking the time to share that with us. We'll get some questions and feedback. We'll share that with you as well. And then I'm turning back to my audience for 1 minute and just saying thank you for joining us today, and we'll look forward to the next one. Thanks, Darren.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.